My son-in-law poured my wife's coffee recipe down the sink like it was nothing. "We don't drink that garbage here," he said, standing in the home I built with my own hands. My daughter said nothing. After 6 months under my roof, she just looked away. I'm Thomas Reeves, 67 years old, retired architect. I spent 40 years designing structures that last. That morning, I began blueprinting something else entirely: his destruction. Before the story begins, here's a shocking statistic. 95% of viewers don't even spend 2 seconds subscribing to a channel. It's not that they don't like the content. They just think 2 seconds isn't worth it. If you're smarter than that 95%, like plus subscribe plus comment, I'm smart. The remaining 5% always understand real value, and I know you're one of them. Now let me take you back to where it all started. October 15th, the morning everything changed. My son-in-law poured my wife's coffee recipe down the sink like it was nothing. "We don't drink that garbage here," he said, standing in the home I built with my own hands. My daughter said nothing. After 6 months under my roof, she just looked away. I'm Thomas Reeves, 67 years old, retired architect. I spent 40 years designing structures that last. That morning, I began blueprinting something else entirely: his destruction. The coffee wasn't garbage. Catherine and I had discovered those beans in a small shop in Salvador, Brazil, back in 2014. We'd been celebrating our 40th anniversary, walking cobblestone streets that reminded us why we'd fallen in love in the first place. She'd made me promise to roast a batch every month after she was gone. "Keep the ritual alive," she'd said. "Keep me alive." 6 years since cancer took her. 6 months since Brad Palmer moved into my house. I was standing at the kitchen counter that October morning, watching the Austin sunrise through windows I'd positioned specifically to catch that light. The house on Maple Ridge Drive was my masterpiece. Every angle calculated, every beam placed with intention. $750,000 of craftsmanship and memory. Paid off in 2019, 2 years before Jessica married Brad. The coffee maker was mid-brew when Brad walked in. He was wearing one of those expensive athleisure outfits that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. His hair was still perfect, despite it being 6:15 in the morning. He looked at my coffee setup, the hand grinder, the French press, the careful ritual I performed every day, and his lip curled. "Seriously, Tom? Not Dad, not Mr. Reeves, just Tom, like we were buddies. Like he had any right to walk into my kitchen and pass judgment. That artisan hipster nonsense? In this house, we drink espresso. Real coffee for real men." Before I could respond, he grabbed the French press and dumped it down the sink. 8 ounces of Catherine's memory swirling down the drain. The smell of Salvador mornings disappearing into Austin plumbing. "There," he said, satisfied. "I'll order us a proper espresso machine. Something modern. This house needs to move into the 21st century." I watched the last of the coffee disappear. Watched Brad wipe his hands on my dish towel like he'd accomplished something meaningful. Watched my daughter Jessica appear in the doorway, still in her scrubs from the night shift at Del Seaton Medical Center, and do absolutely nothing. "Brad," she said, her voice small. "Tired. That was Dad's." "Your dad's stuck in the past, babe." Brad draped his arm around her shoulders, proprietary, possessive. "We're doing him a favor, helping him modernize. Isn't that right, Tom?" Jessica looked at me, really looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw something I'd been seeing for 6 months, but refusing to acknowledge. Resignation. The slow erosion of self that happens when you stop fighting, Stop questioning. Stop being yourself. My daughter, who'd once challenged a hospital administrator over patient safety protocols, who'd stood up to fraternity boys harassing a coworker, who'd inherited her mother's spine, that daughter was looking at me with empty eyes and saying nothing. Right, I said quietly. Modern. Brad smiled. He actually smiled, like he'd won something. I said nothing else. Just turned and walked to my study, the converted drafting room where I designed this house 40 years ago, where Catherine and I had planned every corner of our life. I closed the door, sat in my chair, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not anger, colder than that, more precise. An architect doesn't start with walls. He starts with foundation, with surveying the land, with understanding the structure's weaknesses before planning the demolition. 6 months, they'd been under my roof. 6 months, I'd watched Brad commandeer my remote control, rearrange my furniture, help with my mail. 6 months, I'd watched Jessica shrink a little more each day. 6 months, I'd told myself this was temporary, that families make sacrifices, that Catherine would want me to support our daughter. But Catherine wouldn't have wanted this erasure, this disrespect. That morning, watching my wife's memory wash down the drain, I made a decision. I was going to take my house back, and I was going to do it the way I'd built everything in my life. Methodically, carefully, with every nail in exactly the right place. Brad Palmer didn't know it yet, but he'd just poured out more than coffee. He'd poured out my patience, my tolerance, my willingness to be a ghost in my own home. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a yellow legal pad. At the top, I wrote, October 15th, 2026. The coffee. Then I began documenting everything. An architect doesn't start with walls. He starts with foundation, with understanding what's actually holding the structure up, or what's rotting underneath. That evening, after Brad and Jessica left for dinner at some restaurant I'd never heard of, I went to my home office. The room still smelled like drafting paper and old blueprints, though I'd replaced my tilting desk with a standard one years ago. The filing cabinet in the corner held 40 years of projects. The locked drawer on the bottom held my personal documents. I'd been too tired lately, too accommodating. Brad had offered to help with the bills 3 months ago, said I shouldn't strain myself with paperwork at my age. Catherine always said I was too trusting. She'd been right. I pulled out the last 6 months of bank statements, the ones Brad had been collecting from the mailbox every afternoon, being helpful, being considerate. The credit card statement from September caught my eye first. A charge for $890 at Eddie V's Prime Seafood. I'd never been to Eddie V's, didn't even know where it was. I cross-referenced the date with my desk calendar. September 14th, the day I'd had my annual physical. I'd been gone from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. I kept looking. $2,400 at Best Buy, September 20th, the day of my dentist appointment. $1,500 at Nordstrom, September 27th. My weekly coffee with Michael Chen from Rotary Club, which meant I was out from 10 until noon. The pattern was there, clear as a load-bearing wall on a blueprint. Every charge I didn't recognize corresponded with the time I was out of the house. Times Brad knew I was out of the house. I pulled up my online banking on the laptop, logged into the credit card account, started scrolling through August, July, June. The charges went back 4 months. Restaurants I'd never visited, electronics I'd never bought, clothes that weren't my style, weren't my size. My hands shook as I clicked on one receipt, a PDF from a restaurant in downtown Austin. I zoomed in on the signature line at the bottom, Thomas Reeves. Except it wasn't my signature. Close. Someone had studied it, practiced it. But the R was wrong. I'd signed my name thousands of times. On blueprints, on contracts, on the mortgage papers for this house. I knew the specific loop I made in the R, the way the tail extended. This signature's R was too tight, too controlled, forged. I printed every statement, every receipt, laid them across my drafting table like I was planning a building. Only this time, I was documenting theft. The August statement showed a charge for $3,200 at a jewelry store. The July statement had a weekend at the Driscoll Hotel, $1,800. June showed multiple charges at bars and lounges, none of which I'd ever stepped foot in. I pulled out my calculator, the old Texas Instruments one I'd used since 1984. Started adding 890 plus 2,400 plus 1,500 plus. The numbers climbed and climbed. At 11:30, I sat back in my chair. The house was silent. Brad and Jessica weren't home yet. The Austin night pressed against the windows I'd designed to let in morning light, but keep out the afternoon heat. Everything I'd built so carefully. Everything I'd planned. And underneath it all, rotting the foundation, was this. I looked at the calculator display. Looked at the papers spread across my desk. Looked at the forged signature that was close enough to fool a restaurant server, but not close enough to fool the man who'd been signing that name for 67 years. Catherine's voice in my head. You always assume the best in people, Tom. Sometimes that's beautiful. Sometimes it's dangerous. I picked up my phone, opened the banking app I barely used, the one Jessica had helped me set up last year, navigated to the checking account, the one I'd been too tired to monitor closely, the one that should have had plenty of cushion because I'd been careful, been frugal, been responsible my entire life. The balance loaded. My stomach dropped. It should have been around $72,000. My retirement cushion, my emergency fund, the money I'd saved carefully, invested conservatively, protected religiously. The screen showed $34,312.17. I pulled up the transaction history. Went back 4 months. Saw transfer after transfer to accounts I didn't recognize. Cash withdrawals at ATMs I'd never visited. Debit card purchases I'd never made. $38,000. In 4 months, Brad Palmer had stolen $38,000 from me. I sat in my office, in the house I'd designed with my own hands, in the silence of a home that no longer felt like mine, and felt something colder than anger settle into my chest. This wasn't just disrespect. This wasn't just some entitled son-in-law who didn't like my coffee. This was systematic, calculated, criminal. And if Brad had been this careful, this methodical, this bold, what else was he hiding? I pulled up my banking app, the checking account I'd been too tired to monitor closely. The number on the screen made my blood run cold. $38,000 missing over 4 months. I'd spent 40 years in architecture. I knew when to bring in an expert, when to admit that structural engineering required an engineer, that electrical systems needed an electrician. Pride didn't build good buildings. Teams did. At 6 in the morning, I called Michael Chen. We'd known each other since 1998, back when we'd both served on the board of the Austin Rotary Club. He'd handled the legal work when I'd incorporated my architecture firm. He'd been at Catherine's funeral, one of the few people who'd known exactly what to say. Which was nothing. He'd just stood there. He answered on the 3rd ring, Tom? It's 6 in the morning. You okay? I need a lawyer, Michael. It's about elder financial abuse. Silence, then movement, like he was sitting up. I'm listening. My son-in-law, Brad Palmer. He's been forging my signature on credit card receipts, stealing from my checking account. $38,000 over 4 months. Jesus, Tom. A pause. Do you have documentation? Every receipt, every forged signature? Bank statements showing the pattern. I spent last night building the case. That's criminal fraud, identity theft, potentially multiple felonies depending on how Texas codes it. Michael's voice had shifted into lawyer mode, precise, clinical. Can you be at my office at 9? Bring everything. I'll be there. Downtown Austin smelled like coffee and breakfast tacos when I parked near Michael's office on 6th Street. The building was one I'd always admired. 1920s architecture, limestone facade, the kind of craftsmanship you don't see anymore. Michael's firm occupied the 3rd floor. His assistant brought me coffee I didn't drink. Michael appeared at 9:03, reading glasses perched on his head, looking every bit the 55-year-old attorney who'd seen enough to not be surprised by anything. Show me what you have. I spread the papers across his conference table. He spent 20 minutes reviewing everything. Didn't speak. Just made notes on his legal pad in that cramped handwriting lawyers seem to cultivate. Finally, he looked up. Tom, this is textbook elder financial abuse. It's a 3rd-degree felony in Texas. Brad could face 2 to 10 years in prison. But there's something you need to understand. If Jessica knew about any of this, she didn't. I said it with more certainty than I felt. I tested her yesterday. She has no idea. Good. Because if she did, she'd be an accessory. He tapped one of the bank statements. I'll prepare a cease and desist letter. File a police report. Start the restraining order process. But Tom, once we start this, it's going to get ugly. Family situations always do. It's already ugly, Michael. I'm just finally seeing it. He nodded. Pushed a business card across the table. Before we proceed legally, I want you to talk to someone. Linda Torres. She's a private investigator. Ex-Austin PD, retired 2 years ago. If Brad's been this systematic about stealing from you, there might be more. She can do a full background check, see what else he's hiding. I pocketed the card. How fast can she work? Call her now. Tell her I sent you. She owes me a favor from a custody case last year. I called from Michael's office. Linda Torres answered on the first ring. Her voice was rough, like she'd spent too many years breathing cigarette smoke in police interrogation rooms. When I explained the situation, she cut me off. Stop. Don't say another word on the phone. Meet me at Mozart's Coffee on Lake Austin in an hour. Bring copies of everything. And Mr. Reeves, if your son-in-law is dirty enough to forge signatures and steal 40 grand, he's dirty enough to have other problems. Mozart's Coffee sat right on the water, outdoor decks overlooking Lake Austin. I'd designed a house 3 blocks from here back in 2006. The clients had wanted sunrise views. I'd given them floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the light like a cathedral. Linda Torres was waiting at a corner table away from other customers. Late 40s, dark hair pulled back, eyes that cataloged everything. She didn't shake my hand, just gestured to the folder I was carrying. Let me see. She reviewed the documents faster than Michael had, pulled out her phone, took photos of specific receipts, made notes I couldn't read upside down. Mr. Reeves, I can have a preliminary background report in 48 hours, full workup in a week. But I need to ask, have you noticed any other unusual activity? Phone calls he takes in private, mail he intercepts. He's been collecting my mail for 3 months, said he wanted to help. Right. Her expression said she'd heard that story before. I'll need access to your credit report. Check if he's opened any accounts in your name. Also, I'm going to pull county records. See if there have been any liens filed against your property. Men like this, they don't usually stop at credit cards. I gave her my social security number, signed the authorization forms she produced from her bag, paid her retainer in cash. $1,200 she said would cover the first phase of investigation. Give me 2 days, Mr. Reeves. I'll know everything there is to know about Brad Palmer. And trust me, there's always more than the obvious. I was halfway to my truck when Michael called. Tom, don't react. Just listen. I pulled your credit report as part of the case prep. Someone initiated a refinance application on your house last week. October 9th. They used your name, your social, your property information. My hand tightened on the phone. Refinance? I paid off my mortgage in 2019, I know. But someone doesn't care about that. They're trying to borrow against your equity. And Tom? The application shows a co-signer, Jessica Reeves Palmer. I stopped walking, stood in the Mozart's parking lot, Lake Austin glittering in the morning sun, and felt the ground shift under my feet. Refinance? My voice came out steady. Architect calm, even though everything inside me was calculating load limits and stress points. I paid off my mortgage in 2019. Someone was trying to borrow against my house, the house I'd designed, the house I'd built with my own hands. I needed to know if Jessica was part of this, or another victim. Del Seaton Medical Center sat on Red River Street, all glass and steel and modern efficiency. Nothing like the hospitals where Jessica had been born, where Catherine had died. I'd never designed a hospital. Always thought they prioritized function over comfort. But Jessica loved it here, or she used to. I parked in the visitor lot at 1:15 in the afternoon, carried a paper bag from Kirby Lane Cafe, chicken salad sandwich, no onions, extra pickles. Jessica's order since she was 12 years old. Our tradition, back when I'd bring her lunch during her nursing school clinicals. Back when we'd talk for an hour, and she'd tell me about her dreams of trauma medicine, of making a difference. Back when she smiled. The ER nurse at the desk recognized me. Mr. Reeves. Jessica's in the break room. Second floor, take the elevator to the left. I found her sitting alone at a corner table, still in her scrubs, staring at her phone with the blank expression I'd seen too often lately. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a bun that looked 3 days old. My daughter who'd graduated top of her nursing class, who'd once had so much fire. She looked extinguished. Dad? She blinked, like I was an apparition. What are you doing here? Brought you lunch. Thought we could talk. I set the bag on the table. Chicken salad, no onions. Something flickered across her face. Memory, maybe, or grief for the relationship we used to have. She opened the bag slowly, like she'd forgotten how our lunches worked. Thanks. You didn't have to drive all the way here. I wanted to. I sat across from her. The break room smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. Through the window, I could see downtown Austin, the skyline I'd watched evolve over 40 years. How's work? Busy. We had 3 traumas last night: a motorcycle accident, a stabbing, and a kid who fell off a trampoline wrong. She unwrapped the sandwich but didn't eat. I got off at 7 this morning. Brad wanted to go to breakfast, but I was too tired. Brad. Always Brad. How is Brad? I kept my voice casual. Architect neutral. How's the real estate business going? Her shoulders tensed. Fine. Why? Just asking. He mentioned some investments, said they'd pay off soon. Yeah, He's working on some deals. She still wasn't eating, just holding the sandwich like it weighed 10 pounds. Money's tight right now, but Brad says it's temporary, says we need to be patient. Tight how? I leaned forward slightly. Jessica, you're working full-time. Emergency room nurses make good money. We have expenses, Dad. Rent, car payments, Brad's business costs. Her voice had that defensive edge I'd heard so often in the past 6 months. The tone that said, don't push, don't question, don't make me think about things I can't afford to examine. But I pushed anyway, carefully, like testing a structure's weak point. What about the house? You mentioned Brad was looking into investment properties. He's exploring options. Real estate's his thing. She finally took a bite of sandwich, chewed mechanically. Why are you asking about this? Just curious about your future. Your mom and I always wanted you to be financially stable, own your own home someday. Jessica's eyes went distant. We don't own anything, Dad. We're living with you. We can't even afford our own place right now. What about refinancing? I watched her face, every micro-expression, every tell. Has Brad mentioned anything about refinancing properties? She looked at me like I'd spoken another language. Refinance what? We don't own property, Dad. We're renting. Well, we were renting before we moved in with you. Why would we refinance anything? What if someone wanted to refinance my house? Your house. She set down the sandwich. That doesn't make sense. You paid that off years ago. You told me at Mom's funeral that the house was free and clear, that I'd never have to worry about you losing it. I did tell you that. I kept my voice level. So you haven't signed any refinance documents? Any loan applications? No. She was fully focused now, nurse alert, the way she looked when something didn't add up in a patient's chart. Dad, what's going on? Did someone contact you about refinancing? Has Brad asked you to sign any financial documents lately? Anything at all? No. He handles our finances, says I work too many hours to worry about bills and banking. She pushed the sandwich away. You're scaring me. What happened? I looked at my daughter. At the dark circles, the exhausted posture, the way she'd just said he handles our finances like it was normal, like she'd handed over every piece of her financial identity to a man who'd been stealing from her father. She didn't know. My daughter had no idea her husband was forging her signature. Brad wasn't just stealing from me. He was stealing from both of us. Jessica. I reached across the table, took her hand. When's the last time you checked your credit report? My credit report? She pulled her hand back. I don't know. Years? Brad says our credit is fine. Why? I need you to do something for me. Today. Before you go home. Pull your credit report. All 3 bureaus. Check for any accounts or loans you didn't open. Dad, you're freaking me out. Good. You should be freaked out. I stood up. Pull your credit. Then call me. Don't tell Brad. Just call me. I left her sitting there, half a sandwich uneaten, confusion, and the first seeds of fear blooming on her face. In the parking garage, I sat in my truck and called Michael. She doesn't know. Jessica has no idea Brad forged her signature. She hasn't checked her credit in years. He's been handling all their finances. Michael swore softly. Then she's a victim too. Tom, this changes things. We're not just protecting you. We're protecting your daughter from her own husband. Linda Torres called at 6 in the morning. You need to see this. Now. She didn't want to meet at my house. Said it wasn't safe to have this conversation anywhere Brad might overhear. Instead, she texted me an address. A Starbucks parking lot off Highway 360, south side, away from downtown. I drove through the October darkness. Austin still asleep except for the early commuters heading toward the city. Linda was waiting in a silver Honda Accord, windows tinted, parked at the far edge of the lot. When I pulled up beside her, she gestured for me to get in her passenger seat. The interior smelled like coffee and old leather. A file folder sat on the center console, thick enough to be a novel. 48 hours ago, you asked me to dig into Brad Palmer. Linda didn't bother with good morning, just tapped the folder. I've investigated embezzlers, con artists, and career criminals. Your son-in-law? He's all three. She opened the folder. The first document was a Texas Real Estate Commission disciplinary action. Brad held a real estate license from 2014 to 2018. Lost it in August of 2018 for fraudulent misrepresentation. He lied to clients about property values, forged inspection reports, and pocketed deposit money from a deal that never closed. 3 lawsuits, 2 settlements, 1 criminal complaint that got dropped when he paid restitution. Jessica doesn't know this, I said quietly. Jessica knows whatever Brad told her, which I'm guessing is nothing true. Linda flipped to the next section. After he lost his license, he started calling himself a real estate investor. No actual investments I can find. What I did find was this. She handed me printouts from what looked like offshore gambling websites. Balances in red, transaction histories going back 2 years, online poker, sports betting, even some cryptocurrency gambling. Brad Palmer has lost $67,000 in the past 18 months. And when you can't pay offshore sites, they don't send polite collection letters. They send people. The next document made my stomach turn. A police report from Dallas, dated March 2019. Domestic violence complaint filed by a woman named Rebecca Mitchell. Restraining order granted. Photos attached showed bruises on her arms, a split lip. Brad's ex-girlfriend. They dated for 2 years. She worked as a dental hygienist, made decent money. By the time she left him, her credit cards were maxed out, and she'd taken a second mortgage on her condo to pay his debts. When she finally tried to leave, this happened. Linda pointed to the photos. The restraining order's still active. He's not supposed to be within 500 feet of her. My hands were shaking. Jessica was sleeping next to this man, living with him, trusting him. There's more. Linda pulled out another document. The refinance application on your house? It was submitted to 3 different lenders. All 3 applications show you requesting $200,000 in equity loan. All 3 have your signature and Jessica's signature. I compared them to the samples you gave me. Both forged. Not even good forgeries. $200,000, which tells me Brad's not just stealing to fund a lifestyle. He's desperate. And desperate men do desperate things. She pulled out the final document. This is the part that worries me most. It was a text message screenshot from a number with a Russian country code. The message was in English, but broken. You have 10 days, 67,000 plus interest, 20% weekly since August. Do math. Pay 92,000, or we collect another way. We know about house. We know about wife. Who sent this? His name is Dmitry Volkov. He runs a loan operation out of Houston, but his collection network covers all of Texas. Russian organized crime connections. I pulled Brad's phone records. He's been getting calls from Volkov's associates twice a week for the past month. The texts started 3 days ago. I looked at the message again. We know about wife, Jessica. Brad borrowed from Volkov to cover his gambling debts. Classic spiral. Now he can't pay Volkov, so he's trying to refinance your house to get the cash. Except the refinance applications are getting rejected because the forgeries aren't holding up, which means he's running out of time. I felt cold despite the morning sun starting to break over the hills. The loan shark's deadline. When is it? The text was sent October 14th. 10 days from then is October 24th. Linda looked at me with the flat expression of someone who'd seen too much violence. That's 7 days from now, Mr. Reeves. In 7 days, if Brad doesn't have $92,000, Dmitry Volkov's people will come looking for collateral, and you and Jessica are living in a $750,000 house. They'd come to my home. They'd come to your home. And Brad's already proven he's willing to forge both your signatures, steal your money, and lie to your daughter. What do you think he'll do when men with criminal records show up demanding payment? I sat in Linda's car, watching early morning joggers run past on the trail, watching Austin wake up peaceful and normal, and understood with absolute clarity that my daughter was in danger. Not theoretical danger, not someday danger. In 7 days, violent criminals would come looking for money Brad had stolen and gambled away. My daughter was living with a violent criminal, sleeping next to a man who'd forged her signature, in a house that was about to become a target for Russian mobsters. I had 10 days, no, 7 days now, to get them both out. An architect knows, before you can build, you have to secure the foundation. At 9 in the morning, after Brad left for whatever he pretended to do all day, and Jessica headed to the hospital for her shift, I called a locksmith. Ray Martinez arrived in a white van with Martinez Security stenciled on the side. I'd used his company back in 2008 when I'd upgraded the house security system. Good work, fair prices, the kind of craftsman who understood that quality mattered. Mr. Reeves. He shook my hand. You said all exterior locks? Every entry point. Front door, back door, garage, side gate, high security deadbolts, the best you have. He didn't ask why, just nodded and started unloading his equipment. I went upstairs to the guest room where Brad and Jessica had been living. 6 months of their life scattered across what used to be Catherine's sewing room. I'd built her custom shelving for fabric, a window seat where she'd sit in the afternoon light. Now it held Brad's expensive shoes and Jessica's nursing textbooks. I pulled 3 suitcases from the hall closet. Started packing. Brad's clothes went in without ceremony. The designer shirts that cost more than my monthly water bill. The cologne collection on the dresser. 6 bottles I'd never seen him actually wear. The tablet he left plugged in by the bed. I was zipping the second suitcase when I found it. A phone. Not Brad's iPhone with the distinctive blue case. This was a cheap Android, the kind you buy at a convenience store with cash. A burner phone. My hands weren't steady as I powered it on. No password, no security at all. Just a text thread with one contact, saved as D. The messages made my blood run cold. From D, October 15th. 7 days left. You got my money? Brad's reply. Working on it. Refinance coming through. Just need a few more days. From D, October 16th. No more days. October 24th. You don't have 92,000. We come for the house. And the pretty nurse wife, she worth 92,000 to you? Brad's reply. You stay away from her. This is between you and me. From D. Everything is between me and you. Until it's not. The pretty nurse wife. They knew about Jessica. Knew her profession. Had probably been watching the house. Watching her leave for work. Cataloging assets. I photographed every message. Sent them to my email. To Michael's email. To Linda's email. Then I put the burner phone in a plastic bag and sealed it. Evidence. Downstairs, Ray was installing the new front door deadbolt. The sound of the drill was satisfying. methodical, the sound of taking control back. I packed the rest of Brad's belongings while Ray moved through the house. Bathroom items, the laptop Brad left on the kitchen counter, the stack of bills he'd been organizing for me, all opened, all sorted, all intercepted. By noon, 3 suitcases sat by the front door. Everything Brad Palmer owned, ready for removal. I called Michael. File the restraining order today. Police report today. I'm changing the locks right now. When Brad comes home, he's not getting in. Tom, are you sure? This is going to escalate fast. It's already escalated. There are loan sharks threatening my daughter. Brad's deadline is 7 days away. I don't have time to be careful. Ray finished the last lock at 1:30, handed me 5 sets of keys, each on a separate ring. High-security deadbolts, all 4 doors. Here's your invoice. He paused. Mr. Reeves, I've been doing this work for 20 years. When someone calls and wants every lock changed on a Tuesday morning, it usually means trouble. You got someone you trust? Someone who can be here if things get rough? I've got a lawyer on speed dial and a police report being filed as we speak. Good. He packed up his tools. You did the right thing. Whatever's going on, you did the right thing. After Ray left, I went through the house one more time, made sure nothing of Brad's remained, except the suitcases waiting by the door. Made sure every window was locked, every curtain drawn. Then I sat in my armchair, the one Catherine used to curl up in with her novels, and prepared a folder for Jessica. Inside, copies of every forged signature, the credit card statements, the refinance applications with her forged name, the police report on Rebecca Mitchell, the photos of her bruises, the text messages from the loan shark threatening the pretty nurse wife, everything she needed to see who she'd married. My phone showed 4:47 in the afternoon. Jessica's shift ended at 6. Brad usually came home around 5:30, except lately he'd been coming home right at 5:45, right after Jessica. I sat in my chair with the folder on my lap and the new keys in my pocket. Sat in the house I designed with my own hands, now secured with locks Brad Palmer couldn't open. At 5:47, I heard the truck. I heard the that aggressive engine rumble Brad thought made him sound successful. Tires on the driveway, door slam, footsteps on the walkway. I didn't move from my chair, just listened to the key slide into the lock, listened to it scrape against metal that no longer recognized it. Listened to confusion turn to frustration, turn to anger. He'd try his key, the key that no longer worked. And then he'd know. The key scraped against the new lock 3 times before I heard him curse. I stayed in my chair, listened to the scraping become rattling, rattling become pounding. Tom! Brad's voice carried through the door I'd designed with solid oak core and steel reinforcement. Tom, the lock's broken. Open the door. I set down the folder, walked to the front door. Calm, measured. The way you approach a structural problem. No emotion, just physics and force distribution. I opened the door 6 inches. The security chain stretched tight between us. Through the gap, I could see Brad's face, red with frustration. Can I help you? I kept my voice level. Help me. The lock's jammed. I can't get in. He was still treating this like a mistake, like some accident he could explain away. The lock works fine. I had it installed this morning. His face changed. Confusion to comprehension to rage in 3 seconds. You changed the locks? I did. You can't do that. This is my house. I live here. He pushed against the door. The chain held. Good hardware. Ray had installed it properly. Actually, Brad, If you check the deed, you'll find this house belongs to Thomas Reeves. That's me, paid off in 2019. You've been a guest. Past tense. A guest? His laugh was ugly. I've been taking care of you for 6 months, helping with your bills, organizing your life. And this is how you repay me? Helping with my bills. I let that sit in the air between us. Is that what you call stealing $38,000? He went still. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and I saw calculation in his eyes. Trying to figure out what I knew, what I could prove. I don't know what you're talking about. Credit card fraud, forged signatures, identity theft. I kept my voice calm, clinical. Should I continue, or would you like to see the police report I filed this morning? His hands were fists now. You're confused, old man. You're making up stories. Jessica, tell him. He turned, looking behind him. Jessica's car was pulling into the driveway. She got out slowly, still in her scrubs, looking between Brad at the door and me visible through the 6-inch gap. Dad? Brad? What's going on? Your father's having some kind of episode, Brad said quickly. He changed the locks. Won't let us in. I think we need to call someone. Maybe his doctor. Jessica. I looked at my daughter. Come here. There's something you need to see. She approached the porch, uncertain, frightened. I'd put that fear there by shattering whatever story Brad had built for her. Through the gap, I handed her the folder. Page 7. Look at the signature. She opened it, flipped to page 7. It was the refinance application, the one requesting $200,000 against my house, the one with her name listed as co-applicant, the one with her signature at the bottom. Her signature. Except it wasn't. I watched her face as she realized. Watched the confusion, the studying of the loops and curves, the comparison to her own hand. Watched the moment she understood. Brad. Her voice was very small. This isn't my signature. Let me see that. He reached for the folder. She pulled it away. This says I co-signed a refinance loan for $200,000. But I never signed this. I never even saw this document. She looked up at him. Brad, did you forge my signature? Jessica, don't be ridiculous. Your father's manipulating you. He's trying to break us up. Did you forge my signature? Louder now, nurse voice. The voice she used when patients lied about their medications. We can discuss this inside, as a family. Tom opened the door. No, I kept the door at 6 inches. Jessica, keep reading. Page 12. Police report from Dallas. Rebecca Mitchell, your husband's ex-girlfriend. I watched her flip pages, watched her see the photos, the bruises, the split lip, the restraining order. Who is Rebecca Mitchell? Nobody. She's crazy. She made all that up. There are hospital photographs, Brad. Jessica, don't listen to him. We need to get inside and talk about this privately. Page 19, I said. Text messages from a loan shark threatening the pretty nurse wife. That's you. They know where you work. They know your schedule. Her hands were shaking now. The folder trembled as she read. When she looked up at Brad, her eyes were different. The fog was gone. She was seeing clearly for the first time in months. Brad, what did you do? What did I do? His voice rose. What did he do? Your father just destroyed everything. The refinance would have fixed this, would have given us breathing room. Now they're going to... He stopped, caught himself. Going to what? I asked. The loan sharks? The ones you owe $92,000? The ones who threatened my daughter? Jessica took 3 steps back, away from Brad, toward me. Open the door, Tom. Brad's voice had gone cold. Dangerous. Open it now. Step away from my property. Headlights swept across the yard. Two police cruisers pulling up to the curb. Officer Martinez and Officer Johnson, just like Michael had arranged. Brad saw them, saw the folder in Jessica's hands, saw her standing away from him, next to me. You don't know what you've done, old man. He was backing toward his truck. You just killed your daughter. They're coming for her now. 7 days. You just ran out my clock, and they're going to come for her. Brad. Jessica started. You chose him. Brad spat at her. You chose your daddy over your husband. Fine. When Dimitri's people show up, when they break down this door looking for their money, remember that you chose this. He ran, actually ran to his truck, engine roaring to life, tires squealing as he tore out of the driveway. Officer Martinez was at my door by then. Mr. Reeves? We got a call about a domestic disturbance. Through the gap, I looked at Jessica. She was holding the folder, crying, finally seeing who she'd married. Officer, I said, I think we need to talk. At 11:37 that night, my security camera caught movement. Brad was back, and he wasn't alone with his fear anymore. I'd been sitting in my study, going over legal documents with Michael on speakerphone. Jessica was in her old bedroom upstairs, the one with the window seat Catherine had insisted on when we'd designed this house. After the police left, after the statements were taken, after Brad's truck had disappeared down Maple Ridge Drive, Jessica had asked if she could stay the night. I don't want to go back to our apartment, she'd said. I don't want to be alone. So she'd stayed. And now, watching the security monitor on my desk, I saw Brad on camera 3, the garage side. He was trying the door handle. I dialed 911. Austin Police, what's your emergency? This is Thomas Reeves, 42 Maple Ridge Drive. The subject of a restraining order filed this afternoon is attempting to break into my home. I have video footage. My daughter is here with me. Officers are en route. Stay on the line. Stay inside. Lock all interior doors. I took the stairs 2 at a time. Jessica, lock your door. Don't open it for anyone but me or the police. Brad's outside. Her face went white. Dad, lock it. Now. I heard the deadbolt slide home as I went back downstairs. The 911 operator was still talking, but I'd set the phone down. On the monitor, Brad had moved to the side window, the one in the laundry room, the only window in the house without security bars, because Catherine had wanted natural light for her plants. The glass shattered. I heard it from the hallway, heard the frame scraping, heard something heavy hit the floor, heard footsteps. Brad was inside my house. He appeared in the living room doorway. Drunk, I could smell the whiskey from 15 feet away. His shirt was torn, face flushed, eyes wild. In his right hand, he carried a crowbar. Hello, Tom. His words slurred together. Surprised to see me? The police are on their way. You need to leave. Police. He laughed, high-pitched, desperate. Police can't help me. Only you can help me. You and that house deed you're going to sign. I'm not signing anything. You are. He moved closer, crowbar tapping against his leg with each step. You're going to sign the house over to me. I'm going to take that deed to Dimitri tomorrow morning. Show him I've got $750,000 in collateral, and he's going to give me 1 more week. 1 more week to figure this out. Brad, you're drunk. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. He swung the crowbar. It missed me by 2 feet, crashed into the lamp on the end table. Catherine's lamp, the Art Deco one we'd found at an estate sale in 1992. It shattered, You destroyed my life today, Brad said. The refinance was my way out, my solution, and you ruined it. You turned Jessica against me. You called the cops. You took away my last chance. Your last chance was stolen money and forged signatures. It would have worked. He was screaming now. I would have paid off Dimitri, cleaned up the accounts, and nobody would have known. But you had to be the hero, had to save your precious daughter from the big bad husband. You threatened her. The loan sharks know who she is, where she works, because of you. He raised the crowbar again. Dimitri wasn't going to touch her. Not if I paid. But now I can't pay. Now he's coming for all of us. And it's your fault. I heard sirens in the distance, still too far. Brad, put down the crowbar, sign the deed. No, he lunged. I'd spent 40 years in architecture, but I'd started in construction. Framing houses in the Texas heat, carrying lumber, understanding how structures move and balance. I was 67, but I'd stayed strong, and I'd been sober. I stepped left. His momentum carried him past me. The crowbar hit the wall, punching through drywall. Before he could recover, I had his wrist, twisted it the way you twist a wrench against a seized bolt. The crowbar fell. Brad, stop! He swung with his free hand, caught me on the jaw. Stars exploded across my vision, but I held on, pushed him back. We went down together, hitting the coffee table I'd built with Catherine in our first apartment, watching it splinter under our combined weight. Dad. Jessica was at the top of the stairs. I'd told her to stay in her room, but of course she hadn't listened. She'd inherited her mother's stubbornness. Brad saw her. Something in his face changed. The desperation sharpened into something uglier. "This is your fault," he said to her. "If you'd just supported me, if you just trusted me, none of this would have happened. Brad, please, your precious daddy just signed your death warrant. You know that? When Dimitri can't find me, he's going to find you." I got my knee on his back, held him down. "Jessica, call 911 again. Tell them." Headlights flooded through the windows. Bright, multiple sources. The sirens were still distant, but these weren't police cars. Through the window, I saw them. 3 black SUVs pulling up to my curb. Doors opening, 4 men getting out, all wearing dark suits despite the late hour. One of them was smiling. Brad started laughing beneath me. "Too late, Tom. Too late for all of us. Dimitri's people are here." The front door exploded inward. I'd designed that door to withstand storms, not this. The oak splintered. The frame cracked. And Dmitri Volkov walked into my living room like he owned it. He was shorter than I'd expected. Maybe 5'8", compact build, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly retirement check. Dark hair slicked back, cold eyes that cataloged everything. The broken coffee table, Brad pinned beneath me, Jessica frozen on the stairs, the security camera in the corner. 3 men followed him in. Larger, muscle where Dimitri had calculation. Mr. Palmer. Dimitri's accent was thick, Russian, but his English was precise. "You have something for me?" Brad went still under my hands. "Dimitri, I need more time, just one more. You said 1 more week, 3 weeks ago." Dimitri crouched down, eye level with Brad. "Then you said refinance coming. Then you said problem solved. Now I come to your house and I find you fighting old man on floor. Where is my money? I can get it. The house it's worth is not your house." Dimitri stood, looked at me. "This is your father?" "Father-in-law," I said, still holding Brad down. "And you're trespassing." Dimitri smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Trespassing. This is good word." He noticed Jessica on the stairs. His expression changed. Interested. Predatory. "And this is the pretty nurse wife Brad tells me about. Jessica pressed herself against the wall. "How much is daughter worth?" Dimitri asked me. "Brad owes 92,000. Maybe we make trade?" She looks healthy, strong, young. Something cold and ancient rose in my chest. "You won't touch her?" "No?" Dimitri tilted his head. "Then maybe we take house. Brad says 750,000. We take house, call debt settled. You sign papers tonight. This man doesn't live here." I kept my voice steady. "He's trespassing. He has a restraining order. And I've called the police." As if on cue, the sirens got louder. Close now, less than a block away. Dimitri's smile vanished. He snapped something in Russian to his men. They moved toward the door. Brad tried to scramble up. "Wait! Dimitri, we can still—" "You are finished," Dimitri said. "You think police save you? I know where you live now. I know where she works." He pointed at Jessica. "You think restraining order protects you from me?" Red and blue lights flooded through the broken doorway. Tires screeching, multiple vehicles. "Austin police, nobody move!" Everything happened at once. Dimitri's men scattered, one toward the back door, two toward the side window. Brad lurched to his feet, tried to run for the garage. I grabbed Jessica, pulled her down behind the couch as officers poured through the front entrance. "On the ground, everyone on the ground." "I live here," I shouted. "Thomas Reeves." I called 911. Officer Martinez, the same one from this afternoon, burst through the door, weapon drawn, took in the scene. Broken furniture, shattered door, 4 men trying to flee, Brad near the garage, me holding my daughter behind the couch. "Secure them." Martinez pointed at Dimitri and his men. "And someone get Palmer before he makes it to his truck." 2 officers tackled Brad in the hallway. He went down hard, face hitting the tile floor I'd laid myself 30 years ago. They cuffed him while he struggled. Dimitri and his men were face down in my living room, hands behind their backs. Dimitri wasn't fighting, just smiling that cold smile. "This is mistake," he said calmly. "I am businessman. I come to collect legitimate debt." "Shut up," Martinez said. "You kicked in a door and threatened 2 people. You can explain it to the judge." I stood slowly, helping Jessica up. She was shaking, crying. I put my arm around her as officers flooded through every room, checking corners, securing the house. Brad was screaming now, being dragged to his feet. "Jessica! Jessica, tell them this is your fault. You did this. You chose him over me." She flinched like he'd hit her. "All of this because you couldn't support your husband, because you listened to your father's lies. When they come back, and they will come back, remember you chose this." Brad Palmer, Officer Martinez, was reading from a card. "You're under arrest for breaking and entering, assault with a deadly weapon, violating a restraining order. I'll be out in 24 hours. And when Dimitri gets out, we're coming for both of you." They dragged him toward the door. He was still screaming, still blaming Jessica, still threatening us. My daughter collapsed against me. "I didn't know," she sobbed. "Dad, I didn't know about any of it. The money, the loan sharks, the violence. I swear I didn't know. I know, sweetheart. I know." I held her while officers moved through my destroyed living room, while they hauled Dimitri and his men out to separate patrol cars, while the red and blue lights painted everything in alternating colors. Officer Martinez approached with paperwork. "Mr. Reeves, we'll need detailed statements from both of you. Your daughter, too." He looked around at the shattered door, the broken furniture, the hole in the drywall where the crowbar had hit. "You might want to call your insurance company in the morning." He paused, looked at me with something like respect. "And sir, You might want to call your architect. Going to need that door rebuilt. Through the broken doorway, I could see my neighbors on their lawns, watching, witnessing. The whole street had seen this. But we were safe. Jessica was safe. And Brad Palmer was in handcuffs in the back of a police cruiser where he belonged. 6 months later, the house sounds different. Not silent. Full. It's a Tuesday morning in April, and I'm standing in my kitchen making coffee. The same Brazilian blend Catherine and I discovered in Salvador. The same ritual Brad tried to destroy. But this time, I'm not alone. Jessica appears in the doorway, still in her pajamas, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She's living in the garage apartment now, the one I spent January converting. Added insulation, a small kitchenette, a bathroom with the kind of rainfall showerhead she'd always wanted. Made it hers. Morning, Dad. She takes the mug I've already poured for her. You put cinnamon in it, your mother's secret ingredient. We stand at the counter together, watching the Austin sunrise through the windows I'd positioned for exactly this light. The front door has been rebuilt, stronger than before, with a steel core and a deadbolt that could stop a battering ram. The living room furniture is new, chosen together, without the ghosts of violence. Some things you can't repair. You have to rebuild. The past 6 months flash through my mind in snapshots. Brad's trial in January. The prosecutor had laid out everything: the credit card fraud, the forged signatures, the refinance scheme, the loan shark debts. The judge had given him 3 years in state prison. He'd looked at me once during sentencing. No apology, just hate. Dmitry Volkov had gotten 7 years. Federal charges, loan sharking, extortion, racketeering. His lawyer had tried to paint him as a legitimate businessman, but the texts threatening the pretty nursewife had sealed it. Michael Chen had helped us sue the banks that had processed the fraudulent refinance applications. Negligence. Failure to properly verify signatures. We'd won. $60,000 in damages. Jessica had used her half to pay off the credit cards Brad had maxed in her name. Credit cards she hadn't known existed until she'd finally pulled her credit report that day in the hospital cafeteria. The divorce had been finalized in January. Jessica Reeves again. Not Jessica Reeves Palmer. She'd taken back her name the same day Brad's prison sentence was announced. She'd started therapy in November, twice a week at first, now once a week, learning about financial abuse, emotional manipulation, the patterns she'd missed, the red flags she'd ignored. I keep thinking about Rebecca Mitchell she'd told me last month. Brad's ex, the one with the restraining order. I could have been her, if you hadn't. She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Tonight is Tuesday, which means at 7 o'clock, 12 people will gather in my living room for the support group meeting. It started in February. Just 3 of us at first. Me, a woman named Helen whose son had stolen her pension, and a man named Robert whose daughter-in-law had forged his will. Now we're 12, sometimes 15. Elder financial abuse survivors, their families, people learning to recognize the signs before it's too late. Jessica helps me set up the chairs. She comes to every meeting, even though she doesn't have to. Says she needs to hear the stories, needs to remember she's not alone. At 7:05, Helen arrives with cookies. Robert brings his grandson, a lawyer who volunteers his time answering legal questions. Others follow, Maria and her sister, David and his son, Lynn, who drove from San Antonio just to be here. We sit in a circle where Brad once threatened me with a crowbar. We drink coffee where Dmitry Volkov once offered to trade my daughter for debt. We talk about survival in a space that's been rebuilt for healing. I learned something, I say when it's my turn to share. Taking a stand isn't selfish. It's survival. And sometimes protecting the people you love means becoming someone they don't recognize. Someone who changes locks and files police reports and refuses to be erased. Jessica speaks next. My father saved me twice, she says. From my husband. And from myself. From the version of me that was so afraid of being alone that I accepted things no one should accept. The meeting ends at 9. People hug, exchange phone numbers, promise to return next week. The house empties slowly, and then it's just Jessica and me again. Sunday morning comes, and we sit on the porch I designed 40 years ago, watching the neighborhood wake up. Barbara Peterson waves from across the street. She brings banana bread to every support group meeting now. Arthur Coleman walks his dog past, calls out a greeting. Jessica's coffee cup sits beside mine on the porch railing, steam rising in the cool spring air. Same mugs, same ritual, different context. I've been thinking about going back to school, she says. Maybe getting certified in forensic nursing. Cases involving abuse, assault, evidence collection. Your mother would be proud. I take a sip of coffee. I'm proud. Thanks for not giving up on me. Even when I gave up on myself. I look at my daughter, at the strength that's returned to her face. At the future she's building from the rubble of what Brad tried to destroy. The house I designed isn't just mine anymore. It's ours. It's Helen's on Tuesday nights. It's Robert's, Maria's, David's, Lynn's. A space for healing. A blueprint for rebuilding. An architect knows the strongest structures aren't just built to stand. They're built to shelter, to protect, to become home. This is home.